I'm very sensitive about these kind of things. 22 minutes to 10, it's Shane with you on BBC Coventry and Warwickshire. A study begins today that will last 7 years, looking into the mental health of teenagers, part of a research academics going to be looking at with the mindfulness training. Could help teenagers and save them from developing serious mental illness. Earlier we had a chat with Chris Cullen from the Oxford Mindfulness Centre, who told me why this project is so important.
We're going to be looking at what changes in teenagers' brains when they try mindfulness at times of particular stress or anxiety, because we really know that early teens are a time where the brain is in a critical developmental phase.
Yeah.
And actually we're thinking, well, if we can give some training for how to shape your brain in a more skillful way, it might help to make teenagers more resilient.
Well, joining me live in the studio, and I have to say, bringing an air of serenity to proceedings this morning is Dav Panesar, who's a Sikh scholar and pioneer of mindfulness and self-compassion. Is that the right term, self-compassion?
It is.
Dav, great to have you with us on the show.
Thank you very much.
And you were just telling me off air that for the UK, mindfulness, the birthplace of mindfulness in the UK, Coventry.
Well, in terms of bringing it to the public within a kind of a health intervention,
Was that you, was it, that started?
Yeah, the story of mindfulness with me starts, I mean, I was taught when I was a little kid, you know, I'm in my 50s now.
Right.
But when I was 33, I had a heart attack. And I was at Cov Warwick Hospital, and as I was dying, I decided to prepare. I didn't know what to do, really. So I started getting into this process that I know. Didn't really know what it was going to do. But what it did do over a period of day and a half, 2 days, is stabilize some of my physiological factors. And within about 2 or 3 days, the consultant who was treating me said that there's a significant difference to the damage of your heart compared to other people. What did you do? And we became friends, and he encouraged me to put it on a piece of paper. And because my background was training and science at that time, I was quite able to do that. And I taught it at Coventry University, taught it for but the strangest thing was the only people who really took it on board were Asian businessmen. Because it was stress management for SMEs and stress management for managers.
And why, when you say Asian businessmen, was that because culturally it was something that they'd come across before in their younger days, maybe?
Well, the thing is, we have certainly 2,500 years of evidence to suggest that this stuff works.
Because it's very akin to meditation. I mean, it's a form of meditation, isn't it?
It is meditation. Mindfulness is a Western term, right? It comes...
Can't we handle the term meditation?
No, you can't. No, you can't. Because it's got far too many religious connotations.
You're joking. So if you said meditation, people go, oh, I don't want any of that sort of stuff. But if they say mindfulness, people will buy
it.
Wow.
Yeah, and actually it's anything but mindfulness. It's mindlessness in some ways.
Yeah.
Because you're going beyond the mind. And again, within the Western worldview, and I'm going to use these terms, not in terms of critical, but just putting it into context. Their entire psychology is based on a coke addict called Freud. 150 years of clinical history. Compare this to 2,500 years of history demonstrating the value in your health, your physiological health, your psychological health, and your emotional health, simply by training your awareness on breath or a sound. Yeah. Transcendental meditation or mindfulness meditation, either one of those.
How easy is it to do? I mean, this idea, it's almost like, if you can imagine your mind as a room, it's like taking all the furniture out, isn't it? And
No. On the contrary, it's getting out of the room.
Okay.
Leave the room as it is, because you can't do it.
Wow.
You just walk out of the room. Because if you... And this is where CBT and stuff like that, they work to a degree, but not quite. Or NLP, for example.
Yeah, we're talking about NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming.
Yeah. It takes you down a certain... But all you're doing is rearranging the furniture. But you're still in the room.
Okay.
And here what we're saying is... okay, it's an interesting point.
But can I just... Before you go, hold that thought, because if you go out of the room, you've still got to come back at some point. And by that I mean, you still... The issues that you're not avoiding, but you're stepping out of for the moment, you've still got to come back and deal with them. So how does it help you then?
Because it gives you clarity. It gives you clarity. For example, when we're in the room, it's like a chaotic space, you know, you're thinking, you're discriminating, you have memories working, you have intention working, like your 4 or 5 components of your mind working. With mindfulness, all you're doing is you're going beyond that. Like, for example, you know, when you're dreaming, have you noticed you're in the dream, but you're also watching it? So who's watching? interesting question, no?
Yeah.
So what we do is with mindfulness, we simply go into that space of the watcher, the observer. And the mind, you can see your thoughts, your thoughts come in, oh, I've got to go and get tomatoes or whatever it is, or I'm going to lose my job, whatever it is. You see it, you see what you're thinking, you bring your focus back to your breath, and after a while, because the key...
That's NLP, though, isn't it? I mean, so NLP lends from it then, does it?
NLP has a component of mindfulness in it.
Okay.
Because it has to, right? But you have to recognize that there is a direct connection between the mind and the body. So when you get tired, for example, let's look fear. When you get fearful, your body begins to react to it. Your physiology changes, your heart pressure changes, your blood pressure changes. You got glucose, cortisol, adrenaline flooding your stuff.
Yeah.
Now, if you're doing it all day, every day, all the news is fear-based, all language is fear-based, then really what you're doing is pinch of salt in water every day. Sooner or later it's going to become toxic. And that becomes then the environment for your mental dysfunction and your physiological dysfunction. And Western science at the moment is denying very hard that there is a connection between the mind and body.
Why would it do that? What's their motivation? Because I'm always a great believer in motivations, and I think, that you look at people's actions, and you've got to figure out why are they doing, what's in it for them. I'm always looking at that.
My friend,
is that what it is?
If I can treat your mind in one way, I can treat your body.
If I can give you medicine and charge you a huge amount for it, it's better than you curing yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Have a look at, absolutely. Absolutely,
What do you do then? How do you even begin to teach somebody? I mean, we're not going to be able to do it here,
It's
Dav,
very simple.
How do you do it?
Well, the first thing there has to be like a context behind it, but it doesn't take much. To teach actual mindfulness is about 15, 20 minutes maximum.
But
However,
you have to practice it, though,
yeah,
don't you?
the key is cultivation. It's
Right.
practicing. It's like putting a seed under the ground. You have to water it, nurture it, and in fact, the first time you do it, you will actually feel some benefit, and the more you do it, the more benefit you feel. We've found this. I've been treating people with depression and mental health issues now for maybe 15 years.
I've had a tweet this morning from somebody who says, and they work with people with drug and alcohol addiction, and they use it for that as well.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing results with this.
A little bit harder, particularly with addiction, because ultimately the mind is really just runs. It does the same thing, but with addiction, it's kind of attached to either a psychological or physiological requirement. Your mind is prompted. Like, for example, you see a TV ad about a cup of tea, and all of a sudden you're in the kitchen. The same thing happens with addiction, but you're not quite aware how quickly it happens.
And very often, as you say, so you can have physical effects of that, because the body thinks, "Oh, we liked that last time, let's do it again," kind of thing.
Well, there's your mind-body reaction.
Well, I mean, if people are interested in this and they wanted to do it, I mean, is it easy now to sign up to this? Can you just go along and do a course? Or?
No, there are courses, but let me just put some contraindications, right? It's not a golden goose in terms of it'll sort everything out.
Okay.
The key for mindfulness is the amount of experience you have, because you're dealing with the mind. It's a very deep and very sophisticated instrument that we own, I guess. So when you have someone who's done a 1-year course and teaching mindfulness, in my expertise and the kind of traditions that I come from, which have been practicing mindfulness for several thousand years, we would say at least you need 5 years of personal experience before you even go to teach someone else. So the contraindication is that when you first sometimes start and the teacher isn't quite experienced.
But how do you know? I mean, there's me. I'm walking off the street and I come and meet you, and I don't know whether you've had a year or 5 years. I don't know whether you're having me on or whether you're not.
Well, if you sit with me, you'll know how calm I am.
You are calm. I give you that. I mean, I do.
It's ultimately due diligence. You know, like you wouldn't go to a doctor who isn't qualified or doesn't have experience. The same is true for mindfulness. And the reason I say that isn't for any other reason, because when you first sometimes start, if you have any trauma back that you've buried somewhere, it might just come up. And if it comes up, you may not know how to quite deal with it because you haven't done it too experientially. So there are those kind of issues that need to be one needs to be concerned about.
Final point, what do you think about teaching this in school?
I think it's an absolute must. Not is it just a must, it should be taught in every sector. I've been a very successful businessman. I introduced mindfulness in my business.
What did you do for
one of my businesses? We owned the largest online financial services, which was bought over by Money Supermarket
so
2 years ago.
Quite stressful then, I would have thought.
Yeah,
It's
we introduced mindfulness very quickly, and it was a very successful company because of that. But if anyone wants to do mindfulness and is interested in Coventry to do it, there's a centre called the Flame Centre near the Parade. It's a not-for-profit organisation. It provides mindfulness to anyone. It's been doing it for 5 years now. We're doing mindfulness at Coventry Library every Tuesday. We've done 3 this year. We have a mindfulness at Coventry Cathedral, mindfulness and neuroscience at Coventry Cathedral on the 26th of September, and we have Oxford University speaking on neuroplasticity or neuroscience, and it's making waves. It's making waves. Mindfulness is one technique, but there's a much deeper technique called transcendental meditation, which has demonstrated, and you might be quite interested in this, demonstrated that people who do TM, the rate of heart attack, stroke is reduced by 66%.
Got a lot of bad press. So people remember the 60s and the Beatles and
the Maharishi.
and all of that kind of, you know. And did that ruin it for a lot of people?
I think, you know what, the problem with the kind of Western approach to some of these ancient techniques is they try and profit from it too quickly. And they strip the juice out of it and they keep the packaging. And unfortunately, that's pretty much where it's at. But having said that, the research now that they're kind of academically doing it, because really you can't deny the effect of this stuff. And the USA, I believe it's made policy as in 2014 that anyone who has blood pressure over 130, systolic pressure, should be first prescribed transcendental meditation before any drugs.
Wow.
So with the National Health Service, the way it's going, you can see where this is going to go.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Listen,
and pioneer Coventry.
It's been lovely to meet you, Dav. Keep up the good work. Thanks for joining us. Keep in touch with us. Let us know how things develop. I'd be interested to talk to you again soon.
I hope you can give us some airtime or some PR on this remarkable event we're having at Coventry Cathedral. I mean, just think about it. You've got an Anglican place of worship delivering a Buddhist meditation with a bloke with a turban and a beard. I mean, have we overcome some barriers or not?
Talk to my producer on the way out. I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you, Dav. Good to talk to you.
Thanks
you
for
joining
much.
us. Dav Panesar there, who's a Sikh scholar and pioneer of mindfulness, joining me live in the studio this morning. Why do I think you're going to hear more about that? He's got a point, hasn't he? News headline.